다 다리나 좋네 란드는마 란드 아디샤가 란드 되는 곳들에 아니 제부 종어도 도모이 라지린 봐 되네 니바들에 딩다 도모이 라지린 봐 되네 마 제부 침비 라지린 봐 자주 생고듯이 되네 다드네 파시티벌 서비스 때 차네 다 하고 되는 거 말이야.
So we'll be going over again the text we have been going over, the Atisha's Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. And when we look at this text, we can divide it into three categories. The teachings that are shared in common with beings of small capacity, the teachings that are shared in common with beings of medium capacity, and the teachings that are shared in common with beings of great capacity. And in this section, we enter the teachings on bodhicitta, or the mind that aspires to enlightenment. And then, within this category of the great vehicle, we have the perfection vehicle teachings. And once the perfection vehicle teachings have been completed, we enter the tantric vehicle teachings. So this is where we've arrived at the teachings on the secret or tantric vehicle.
다 제부 중어도 통을 라지에 받을 가르치고 그래서나 안에 소동에 가네 사당 멀려하게 안에 랑그레 받으시고 그래서 말해 겨울로다 되네 레데고je 안 주진송야다 샤나제야 어디서 된데 그래서 말해
Jantro leje dang
안에 도저 상고는 샤나제 비치 어디 된데 그래서 말해
Tsuchim. So what are the teachings shared in common with beings of small capacity? These are beings who wish to eradicate or abandon rebirth into the three lower realms of the hell, hungry ghost, and animal. And they wish to achieve a higher rebirth into the gods and humans realms and so forth. So the stages of the path for this type of being are to have a stable foundation in refuge, an understanding of the law of cause and effect, and modification of one's behavior or restraint of behavior, in order to practice ethics, and also a practicement of acknowledgement of downfalls or confession. So these practices combined will allow a being of small capacity to achieve a rebirth in the higher realms and abandon rebirth into the lower realms. So these are the stages of the path for beings of small capacity, or the stages of the path which are shared in common with beings of small capacity.
단딩딩안 된다 도모이 라지에 받을 가든 거라서나 되네 내종 상바 코 퀴동에 내가 좋네 안에 가지고 그래 라바송 주진지 라바 땡나지 라바송 주고네 안에 탑을 놓아게 라지에 받는 거라서 말이야.
So the next level, which are the teachings shared in common with beings of medium capacity, are for beings who renounce or have renunciation. And what are they renouncing? What are they wishing to definitely get out of? They are wishing to definitely get out of the suffering of cyclic existence. So the being of medium capacity renounces the suffering of cyclic existence and is able to achieve liberation by practicing the three higher trainings, the higher training in ethics, the higher training in concentration, and the higher training in wisdom. So the being of medium capacity achieves liberation in dependence upon the three higher trainings because he or she renounces the suffering of cyclic existence.
어제 다데네 제부 중어다 중의 라지에 받은 딩게 라지에 받은 속걸로 제부 쳔비 상주 상바 속에 나서는 거스 제부 중어 속에 아니 제부 안에 던도 나냐고 상로 요르스
라니 치고 된저 통
나로 제부 나로 제부 하다면 대서 도나냐고 상로 최종을 말이야 나로 제부 타바 도나냐고 상로 대면 상바리스 된데 제바레마도 아니 중어도 도모이 라지에 받 전도다 Lende dan shadang tu ngalo tiba chembi ne shangchu samba zu ga nyasu len gu res menjung samba shangchu samba zu nyasu len gu re laba sung ne shangchu samba zu nyasu len gu zang tumu yung la jere bas tejen ba dan teme dan din do du ga tumu la jere bas.
So it is not to say that the being of great capacity, the bodhisattva, does not need to practice the two previous capacities or scopes. It is necessary for the being of great capacity or bodhisattva to practice the stages of the path or practice the teachings shared in common with beings of small capacity, the teachings on refuge, law of cause and effect, modification of one's behavior and acknowledgement of one's downfalls, as well as the teachings shared in common with beings of medium capacity, the three higher trainings of the higher training in ethics, the higher training in concentration, and the higher training in wisdom. So it's necessary for this bodhisattva, or the being of great capacity who is practicing the great vehicle teachings, to also practice the small and medium capacity teachings that are shared in common with them. So the reason that the lesser vehicle is called as such is because being of the lesser vehicle has a much smaller type of thinking. It's not as great or not as vast as the being of great capacity's thinking, because he or she just wishes to have a pleasant state or to have happiness for him or herself alone, and does not wish does not look to others' happiness, only concentrates on his or her own happiness and his or her own liberation. And it's because of this limited thinking or this smaller scope of thinking that this is called the lesser vehicle. But the renunciation and the three higher trainings and all of these previous teachings in the small and medium scopes must be practiced in union with the bodhicitta found in the great vehicle.
다 제가 준비 라제진 바데 된데 수수 상마에 수수 도와 도바 나지 세제 다지게 도와 도고 그래 수수 동에 먼저 바나지 아니 세제 다지게 동에 도고 말에 세제 다지 도와는 거야 나 동에 매봐 아니 어 동에 매봐 셰비 체도 어느 세제 다지게 도와지고 또 보자 오냐베 세제 상주 생로 정고 그래서 대상으로 자체비에서 대바 준비 주스 말이야.
So when we move to the teachings for beings of great capacity or the great scope, this is a being who recognizes that, like his or herself, all sentient beings wish to have happiness. And like him or herself, all sentient beings wish to not have suffering. So this practitioner then wishes to not only achieve happiness for him or herself, but to bring other sentient beings to a state of happiness. So the Mahayana mind generation takes place when this being wishes to become a fully enlightened Buddha, or wishes to reach the state of unsurpassable complete enlightenment in order to eradicate the suffering of all sentient beings, and in order to facilitate the process of bringing about their complete happiness. When this type of mind generation that aspires to become enlightened in order to free others and in order to bring others to a state of enlightenment is the main characteristic of the great scope of the great vehicle teaching. And it's because of this broad thought that wishes to free all sentient beings. It's because of the vast, the greatness of this, the greatness of the scope of this type of thinking. It's because of this that these teachings are called the great vehicle teachings.
어제 다든네 대바심이 라로 장주들 든네 다제냐바 지구네 sensitive 추다 준르명아 뒤주구네 sensitive 추니 용도 왔 말베.
So the Te Chengi Chu, the Dajin Nambaje, the Judre Menga Dun Ni, the Senchegi Ju Ni, the last okay. So the great vehicle teaching, the characteristic of the great vehicle teaching is bodhicitta. And bodhicitta, or Mahayana mind generation, can be achieved by two causal practices. The first being called the 7-point cause and effect for achieving bodhicitta, or for achieving the mind that aspires to enlightenment. And the second is called equalizing and exchanging self with others. So these are two causal practices for achieving the state of bodhicitta, or the mind that aspires to enlightenment.
다 상주가 센 줄 제자소나 아니 상주 생바 차는 거르스 말베 상주 생바는 거르스 상주 생바레 자두 아니 상지 고봉마도 주거든 냐네 가제 거르스나 시스 퍼바시 말베 신도 냐스래야 데마두나 아니 추리지 러바나 띵겐제지 러바나 시러지 러바소 냐네 제야도 띵서리스 말베.
So once one has this mind that aspires to enlightenment generated in his or her continuum, then he or she becomes a bodhisattva. And then this bodhisattva can practice the 6 perfections. And within this practice, we find also the 3 higher trainings. So we find the higher training in ethics, the higher training in concentration, and the higher training in wisdom. So we find these 3 higher trainings within the 6 perfections. So the bodhisattva then practices these perfections once he or she achieves this state.
Pashin TV ni shangchu semba su nyangsen su do tin sares ane Pashin TV lang la den sanji gumo to bala shira ga tarim go gores ka ba tame tambo de ni ba tan somba o den ge mo chu sa ne sanji ba ma do ane ta ni ba ji ge sanji do ka le khawres in sares ta ha tiba chenbu de la do da ha ni ge na ne ha le jo ba yin na ane sanji gumo to bala nyo bu sanji de ji ge ko ta shi ji wa res marbe.
So if one depends upon the perfection vehicle, one will be able to achieve Buddhahood, but it takes a very long time. It is very far away. It can take 3 countless eons in order to achieve Buddhahood in the perfection vehicle. So that it speaks of the perfection vehicle speaks of the 3 countless eons: the first kalpa, the second kalpa, and the third kalpa. So this is a very long distance to travel, and takes a very long time to achieve Buddhahood. But if one practices the tantric vehicle, it's possible for him or her to achieve the state of Buddhahood very quickly. So this is the difference we can see between perfection vehicle and the tantric vehicle, that the tantric vehicle, one can achieve Buddhahood very quickly, whereas the perfection vehicle takes much longer.
Pashin tiba dang hagi tiba ni de toya ga sanji cheba yo mar sanji jibares Pashin tiba sanji go mo tubi chedo ani shangju ge sen go ya shinru nyaso la ya wadan je wares hagi daga re sanji go mo tubi chedo an jilhai nenju go la so ba wadu go sanji go toja sanji go jibares sanji go ni ba yo mares Pashin tibi toja sanji dang hagi toja sanji ni de n ga yo ma jibares.
Dene Pashin tepa senche dang shintu nyalan chegadu dene nga gi flying nejor
nenjuda ane Pashin tebi nyalan nga ba choya nyalan jegurus
chegadu
tomo shidu de Pashin tepa to tomo yu lang res Pashin tepa to nga ni tomo yu lang changshu ge sen de Pashin tepa to nga ni tomo lang res.
So there's no difference in the actual Buddhahood that is achieved by the perfection vehicle, or the Buddhahood that is achieved by the tantric vehicle. There's differences in some practices, but there are also practices that are shared in common. For instance, the mind that aspires to enlightenment that must be generated, and then the 6 perfections that are practiced in the perfection vehicle are also practiced in the tantric tradition. So these are practices that are shared in common with the perfection vehicle and the tantric vehicle. But The tantric vehicle has practices such as deity yoga, which are exclusive to that particular vehicle. So there are differences in practices, but there also are practices that are shared in common with the two. This is the point that is made, that the practices share some differences, but the Buddhahood that is achieved is precisely the same.
당아서 탄타세 탄타세 산스다이 길에 안에 마타서 말বে 마타 멘터 매스나 나저 예지세 버와 마스나 예시세 버 말বে 트라스야데 쪼벌 고거스 쪼바 예지세베 드네 하 제리다 조리 체제다 체맥 내주도 냐네 지기나 아니 내손을 지금 말해 내손그 동에 ጫ도 그래 코알 그거 말해 그 동에 ጫ도 그래 아니 타메비 나와도 셴벌 ጫ도 그래스 임 타메비 나와도 셴버스 타메비 나와도 셴버스 타메비 나와도 셴버니는 하고 두모 많이 보자로 보다 아니 타메비 나와서는 아주 도스 대베이나 아주 컴바 동고도 나 제베 인상바지도 어디 타메비 셴버스 타메비 제분 나와줘로 타메비 나와 아니 제불 하고 온들래 저런 하이 인상들 제베 인상 받은 거 아는 거로 타메바 제베 나 제베 인야베 상로 타메비 상로레스
The eradication of ordinary appearances. Okay, thank you.
근데 제베 나 하이 공바이나 나 제베 인야베 상로 든 거 아는 거로 어디 타메비 셴 받을 녀분도 그러지 말베 엔트도 타메비 셴바드 지링 봉자르스 지링 지비림바
Okay.
타메빈 하와드 타메빈 하와주로 나와 하와드 베지 조링 봉자자고 만도 조링 타메빈 가서 강바다 근데 타메반 하와주로 봐 아니 라이 내주 고네 아니 가서 강바데 야이 나오고 야이 말베 아니 가서 하나는 거로 봐 아니 가서 하다 강바라 야이 나오는데 아니 가서 강바 타메반 하와든 가는 거도 지링게 다진 공용도 마다비신 그 나와도 가는 거로 셴바드 타메빈 나와도 셴바서 어디서도 말베 좁아 matter.
So when we look at the word tantra, or we look at the word, mantra rather, and we break down the meaning of mantra into the English, we see there are two syllables, ma-tra. So the ma here refers to the mental consciousness or mind, and the tra refers to protection of. So, or protector. So mind protector or protection of the mind. So in the tantric vehicle, one can practice the various stages of generation and stages of completion, or the yoga with and without signs. But one of the main goals is to eradicate or to abandon ordinary appearances. So one can do so in the generation stage by doing the various practices of deity yoga, and by imagining that one is abiding in the palace of the deity, and imagining that all of these ordinary appearances are transformed into pure appearances. So the place of abiding and the body one is abiding in and so forth are all transformed into that of the deities. And this helps in the generation stage. This helps to eradicate there's the two differences: causes of ordinary appearances and attachment and the ordinary. Okay, that's what it is. So the generation stage helps to eradicate the attachment to the ordinary appearances. During the generation stage, by doing the deity yoga practice, and by imagining oneself as the deity, and by imagining the dwelling as the deity's palace, and so forth, then this eradicates the attachment to ordinary appearances. And I don't, Rinpoche, chu the zurim labsung, zurim the lasar.
타메빈 하와디 조링 봉자 타메비 셴바드 지링 봉자
So
오버장 하고 버자 가실로 어떤 순서 요です
lesser to Chena. So the completion stage eradicates the actual ordinary appearances. So the generation stage, by doing deity yoga and so forth, has the ability to eradicate the attachment to the ordinary appearances, and then the completion stage eradicates the ordinary appearances themselves.
Tenen gato tenzin dang nyumo to tu ngalo te ngala me jin nyudi marbe nyudi.
That's cool. The Danzing. Yeah, just around.
Tenzin dang nyumo ba yoro o nyumo ba tu nyudi. Nyudi is. Ta me bi shen ba se ade nga ge jering gi ponja res. Ponja ngone yin da mai to ba mo yo res.
The dancing dang
nyomomba nyudi res ha go tolang to because ane dancing dang nyudi ngo pon res nyudi ngo da da leji ngo pon res
nga gi tolang then the bonja the okay. So the grasping according to some interpretations, the grasping at true establishment and the afflictions at the path, according to some interpretations, at the path of tantric path of seeing, stated that the afflictive obstructions are eradicated at that point. The grasping at true establishment and the afflictions are eradicated, so the afflictive obstructions are eradicated. So this is the object of abandonment at the tantric path of seeing, according to some interpretations.
Oje ta me bin hwa da shen ba ta me bi shen ba sana ane nga so nga je bi yin nya bi sang lu jin do o ta me bi shen ba se de shen ba mar ba so ayes ya jin do ayes ya de nga yi se de sang lu de ta me bi shen ba de shen ba ta nga la yin sang bi sang lu ta ja ba yin na nga la yin je bi sang lu ta yong du nga la yin sang bi sang lu de ge nga ane nga me yin nya bi sang lu de kan wo res ta me bi shen ba de ka wo se mar ba jirin ko so nga la yin sang gong go res gong yong du nga me yin sang ba de sang lu ta me bi shen ba de kan wo res mar ba.
So, at the generation stage, one is able to abandon the attachment to ordinary appearances. In ordinary appearances, one is attached to the idea of the I. I am Jeff, for instance. This is me, I am Jeff. So by doing the deity yoga practices, and by imagining oneself as the deity, and by imagining that I am the deity, then this abandons the the attachment to the ordinary appearance that I am Jeff. So this is how the generation stage practice, in which one generates oneself in surroundings as the deity, generates oneself as the deity. This eradicates the attachment to the ordinary appearance of what one previously thought they were, or who previously thought they were.
Da fashin tibal maybe ngale yebi chechu yewas ju daba hne daba longshe daba zeba daba khazonga ju zaro da ngazo ane nga I am jab susu mi yoro na tin ya sanlo de ta me bi shen bares marbe shen bares da tongba ni le san da ne ane nga la yin nga drama yin shen ne yin san da ba yin na sanlo de an jiri da zurin san da cheje de seme ne ju de was de ta me bi shen ba ga was marbe.
So the perfection vehicle and the tantric vehicle have four differences that we previously spoke of. Four differences being the purity of body, purity of enjoyments, purity of activities, and purity of abode. Or it's purity of enjoyments, purity of activities, purity of, hold on here. I got to write them down. Purity of body, purity of activities, purity of enjoyments, lo dang long shu.
Daba, ju daba, long shu daba, zeba dabas. 현 다바스나 수수 대사도 자이 강이 공세 현 다바와 주 다바스나 수술 하고 온들 주 다바르와 수술 하이 산 다바이나 주 다바 공거와 되는 longe 오마 아온 신지런 처범 걸어서 사매기 뒤에 두스 면에 공부데 네 longe 다바스
맞아.
제바 다바스나 수술 하고 하이 도걸 하지 되는 거네 들려서 주 아니 신제 단식 디지장 아니 가서 우리 외제 체주 받어야 오던데 제바 다바스 그 말이야.
So the four purities that differentiate the tantric vehicle from the perfection vehicle are the purity of body, purity of activities, purity of enjoyments, and purity of dwelling, or purity of abode. The purity of body refers to the actual deity yoga, where we imagine ourselves as the actual deity. We transcend our ordinary idea of ourselves and imagine ourselves as the deity. So this is the purity of body. Purity of activities refers to the meditations that we can do where we give and receive the various lights that circumambulate in a mantra garland, seed syllables at our heart, and give and take light in various directions. This is what the purity of activities refers to. Purity of enjoyments refers to the ability to utter the syllables Om Ahom 3 times to purify and bless any offerings and so forth, or any enjoyments that one is able to use and transform them into nectar and into pure, uncontaminated objects. So this is the enjoyments. And the purity of dwelling refers to imagining that the place that one is abiding is the actual palace of the deity, imagining that the place one is dwelling is a pure land, a pure dwelling, and this is the purity of dwelling. There's another word that's used there. But dwelling is what it means. So, what is it? Environment. Thank you. So the pure. I don't know why I forgot that. The purity of environment is the fourth one, and that refers to the purity of imagining that the environment is the celestial palace of the deity and is the pure land of the deity. The environment that one is dwelling in. These are the four differences between the perfection vehicle and the tantric vehicle. Okay, so then the attachment, okay, I have it down, attachment, emptiness. Rinpoche, dene, the tama nge jason.
제바 다바스 타만 제바 다바스
Je lasar, dene denzin dang, the tombani gari lasong.
대진 다 녀모바도 그걸로 네 하게 통랑 보자로 통랑 거 본사로 와 다 드니야 네 도링 보자 되던 대직 바차다 대직 바차다 타메비 나와도 나와 타메비 나와 제부 나와 컴바 나와 아니 도링 거서 답이 나와 다진 나오고 다진 나오도 타메비 나와던 거로 와 되네 제부 나도 제부 가서를 하이마 나와되게 네 하고바되게 아니 제부 탐해봐 나와던 가로 거지로 와 던데서도 거지래.
So in the actual completion stage, the ordinary appearances themselves are dissolved, are abandoned. So one does this by, the ordinary appearance is that I am Jeff, there is a Jeff here. So this is the ordinary appearance. But by doing the deity yoga, that ordinary appearance itself can be transformed into that of the deity's appearance. So in the completion stage, one is able to transform the actual ordinary appearance into that of the pure experience, or that of the pure deity. So this is what takes place in the completion stage. And in the generation stage, one is able to abandon the actual attachment to the ordinary appearances. Okay.
답변 example 너네 좀 알았어. 그나 가서 하베요. 라페 온도와 라페 온도 안에 그 잡아이나 아우이나 될 라데 마페 온도 그런 나이 삼바디요로다 라도 그 조불 조용도 라도 조불 조자디 그 그런 이상바요 말로 라디 이상바지요로다 안에 라글로 내죠 내중 라페안도 내 내중 라 마페 온도 잡아도 그 잡아야 들어다 나 잡아 이상 냠상로 지요로와 어때 타메비 셴바도 말베스 타메비 셴바 안에 콜레 안에 내중의 현대단 내중을 하드 배용도 그 내중을 하드 인상바지마도 안에 나 잡아 이냐비 셴바도 말스 어떤 잡이 송요르스 때
So it's very similar to the occurrence of what's the word? I don't want it to sound. I'm just trying to think of the word so that it doesn't sound strange. When one is taken over by, it's going to sound strange no matter what. Okay, so when one is taken over by an actual god, for instance, when one has an ordinary body and then becomes possessed, in a sense, by another, that's the word I didn't want to use, by a god or an external being, enters their body and is actually able to give information and actually talk, that person who was previously perhaps a monk or a regular being, it's difficult to say at that point whether they're a god or a human, because the god has taken over their body and they're able to talk, and the speech that they're using is that of the gods. So here, this example is given because in India, there is, partially this will be translator's note, just to explain to folks who aren't aware, and I'll tell you which is. In India, there's a monastery called Nejung. That monastery has an oracle called the Nejung Oracle, which is the translator's note, personal oracle to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So this is an ordinary monk who is at Nejung, who at certain times a ritual ceremony is done, translator's note, and then this god comes and enters the body of this monk, and then he is able to predict certain things and give advice and so forth. So that's a translator's note. So this is at the Nejung Monastery in India, and so this takes place. So this is an example of a time where the moment before this took place, the monk who is later possessed by this being believes he is a monk. He believes at that moment he is a monk. But then once the god takes over, once Nejung enters his body, at that point that thought is no longer there. Is the thought that I am Nejung at that point. So it's very similar to this, because at that point an actual deity or an actual god enters the monk and takes over, in a sense, the monk. So what was previously the monk is now the god.
and go to them chasuna nga drama ngone yin ha be sang lu che chu shi da chang go res nga yin sang lu dong ga nu ta me shen bang ga wu res den da wu res de.
So, for instance, when we're doing the deity yoga, if we're doing a meditation or familiarization with Tara, and we're imagining that we ourselves are Tara, this actually combats ordinary appearances as well, because we need to establish that we are truly this deity Tara when we're doing the meditation. We need to be sure of this. This is how this kind of meditation combats ordinary appearances as well.
And to say le bana jawaram ji tene khamba zinyo na lo le lasong pe song lasong ne jong ji ka dong ji chamba ji song pe bres and lasong de pe ge med de jong ga so mares de ga so ke cha shi du me ke cha shi res and ko so so de la pe ne jawaram de jo la du de ma jo da. That's
good. That's good.
jawaram zinyo na lasong pe bres lasong pe
Peson paper lasong paper
내중지 가동지 아니 참바세주 참바
동 and samba.
참바여와 and the last one the what the pen and the last one the Mash, Kujagon Mashuja. Not so the Nema Devi.
Okay.
And Jorman de Shuta. And Hazoge Clapeke Matu like Geshe Mars, Kuzu like Geshe Maroda. Lapesa do Kuzu, Geshe do like Geshe Naruko, Bara,
Okay. The Halai Geshe and Chiran Shusone.
Not so go Marita.
Chiran de Kambale Shusone.
Those.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure of that. I'm a terrible student.
Kuzu like Geshe and Jorman Jishu, Karshuina. Sangatsu go, make him, like Geshe.
Okay. So, there was a time when in India at the Dalai Lama's palace in Jakarta in India, the Dalai Lama's palace in Dharamsala, where three gods came to the Dalai Lama's quarters, Nejung, Kadang, and Tsamba. There's another names for those two, aren't there?
Bama, Samba, Bama.
Brahma is
Samba's Haji.
Okay, so the three gods, Nejung, Kadang, and Samba, so came to the Dalai Lama's quarters, and I was there, and there were three chairs, three cushions or chairs set up, and they sat down, and we couldn't understand what they were saying. They weren't speaking in the language of humans. They were speaking back and forth with one another in some language that we couldn't understand.
God's language.
In some God's language that we couldn't understand. So they were talking back and forth. So this happened in the Dalai Lama's quarters.
Before they came, they were just monks, and they spoke human speech, and then when the gods came into those monks.
Oh, so prior to them, the gods actually arriving, they were speaking in normal voice, human voices, because they were monks. And then when the gods arrived, they were speaking in tongues that we couldn't, or speaking a language of the gods that we couldn't understand.
Kuzu like Geshe also make Gogumudus. Kuzu like Geshe, Jarum Jishu Kashi.
Jao Rinpoche got.
Hakozu Geshe, Nalul Geshe, make Geshamas like Geshe. Then Kuzu Jarum Jishu Kashi in the Hakumaras.
Jao Rinpoche got it.
Like taught the Lama. God taught the Lama.
Then Jao Rinpoche Shin.
Jarum is in the lots of Nalji laws and Jesus. I forgot.
The La Nge La Sang Nge Jason.
How could you get a shade roll? How could
La Jao Rinpoche get a shade.
How soon get a shade?
Nyamdo.
Then the Nejungi Jarum is chill out. The Dalai said, and the Nejung Alji laws on Nejis.
Okay. All right. So then the gods were, I'm not very good at like the common language. I'm better at the terms. So the gods were speaking amongst themselves, and then Nejung started to have a conversation, saying something to the Dalai Lama. So then, when we asked the Dalai Lama what Nejung had said to him, the Dalai Lama just said, I don't know, I forgot what he said. And they were speaking still in the God's language at that point. We couldn't understand what they were saying.
Lama Pena was like Geshe Maris, Tabazu Shea Maris. Had the face Muna, then Baden Lama Sedajuro. Sedajul didn't like Geshe that day. Nejun Leon, and Baden Lama Sedajuro, or Del Geshe.
The drapa, the hla lesson, then a getish go, Padalamo go getish. Padalamo getish do.
Baden Lama was a Geshe.
Padalamo la.
Not to Tongo, did Baden Lama show you ours.
Anja Gorsen.
Gogur, like Geshe Gogur.
Yene Padalamo cake. Take getish. Then Kandre Hakosan.
Could like Geshe,
like Geshe do. Padalamo.
Baden Lama Mala Baku.
Okay, all right. So I just want to be clear. I don't want to tell a story and then everyone leaves and tells all their friends. We have talking statues. So then, and then also then the Nejung turned to Palden Lamo. There was a Palden Lamo statue there as well, and turned to that statue and began to talk, and they began to have a conversation. Now I asked, did you hear Baldin Lamo's statue say anything back? And he said, no, we couldn't hear these things, but they were having some sort of dialogue together, because the god was speaking, Nejong was speaking to the statue, who was, the statue of course is Baldin Lamo. So the...
What's the time in Hanshin with the double inserts? Happy on you could me some of your money, some of yours.
So prior to, so previously the monks thought they were monks, and when the god arrived, they no longer thought this. They were then gods. So this is an example, and this is similar to the abandonment of ordinary appearances, because here you see the example where the ordinary appearance of themselves is abandoned when the god takes over their bodies.
That Labeke Mason de Le had the Chintasona, had the Rosasona, because the like a share was. Had Pesasona, and the Kuzu Lagi Shagmaris.
So then when the gods leave their bodies, leave them, then they don't understand the language any longer, so they don't understand the language that was spoken.
What did that time in our double, Jew double, Lonshe double to go temper chayung, one and not high in samba. Not this at the one in Jaikan, but dashing temper chayung was. Then the Millet happy in Dabu, put the Javaris.
So one can abandon the ordinary appearances by practicing these four distinctions: the purity of body, the purity of activities, the purity of enjoyments, and purity of environment. So by practicing these, then one can abandon ordinary appearances by having a very stable practice of these differences. So having a very stable for surety that one is the deity and dwelling in the pure environment with the enjoyments and so forth, so and the activities. This one should have a very stable practice in, and one should be sure of these things and should not waver from these purities in order for the abandonment of ordinary appearances to take place. So now let's move over to 60 in the root text, Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment.
What the ancient Taji Lushu that Hadunil Truba Yi, Shena Jesu Lena J, Pombazandu Lazuba, what the Namates in Udua. Hadunil Truba,
Hadunil Drew. Okay.
The name about the Chilushu Darwa.
Drew. If you wish to.
I'll tell you, Tijilu,
Tijilu.
Hadunil Truba, Inch.
You need seek J Kakare. Let's go.
Hadunil Truba Yi. Hadunil Truba Yi. Shena Jesu Lena J. Pombazandu Lazuba. Ruchen Jesu Toji Changs. What about the Jiludale?
Okay. So number 60 says, if you wish to create with ease the collections for enlightenment through activities of pacification, increase, and so forth, gained by the power of mantra.
다 가도니를 주바이 보마서 하데 하냐네 제기나 파신 티발을 먼저 하데 시작은 뇌바치고레스 하들 뇌바치고요레스 네 하냐네 제기나 하도 뇌바치고 하도니를 주바이 뇌바 가르요레스나 셰당 제수라 셰당 제수 나지 레나지 셰당 제수 레나지 이제 체지 체는 이제 셰당 제수 아니 하냐네 제기나 아니 하 사이네 주고발라 되네 아니 시일레 두아용 거래 시일레 아니 다기네 좀 바치시 원주스 아니 라다 쟁게 내매바줘야 아니 바치 매바줘야 돈도 너발라서봐 매바줘야 어떤게 내다 돈 바치시야라서베 하고 돈 다시지야 요레스 셰당 시일레 제빌레 시일레 제빌레 옹길레 trabiles leisure that do da lo ne abon she lesna pana lag da judi lag gar nyang so la ba yin na tla den ne ani she yu gi le nga so trabu me ba jambu le den duwa yo res
Activities of pacification, increase, power, and wrath.
Thank you very much. Increase power and wrath.
dagi ne den ba shi wan zo shi le garesna ane lagun ane judi kan ro la yi ne ju nyang so la ba yin na tla den ne shi le ru tu gres shi le ga ru resna ane ra da je ge ne ma ba zo ya ne sabri mar be ne sabri zo ro wa sabri me ba zo ya
Self and others. Sickness of self and others.
de sana ne do ge ba che na mo to su me ba zo ya ne dun pache sana ngasu khar khash plan khash ngasu mawi wa do ekor awatan ge pache to ne meba su ya ge kha ge tu ne le waris wa to su shile dag ne dun pache she wan sus dag ne dun pache she wan pache ane ngasu chu ji ba da me ji ba da ekor dang he gen dang watan ge ji ba mo ka de ro de shi tu ne shile hala dene paji tibal mebe wotne ge karso kore pen yo ares marbe benebe de laundry mer dagne de paji shi wondos
Yes, if you don't mind, I might need a little bit of help with this one. I'm not so clear and I don't want to waste a lot of time.
shile sna trabu don shewa trabu sna ngazo jidel jena ma ja du su trabu ro ane tene mai ba ji gen jang ba ji le ga ji an do chong zhe dang den ji ge yin ma ne ba ji le ga ji an do wo de shi le so mar ba
So that's the action of pacification,
Pacification, peaceful.
peaceful pacification.
So,
Go ahead.
so those are the activities of eliminating sickness, disease, eliminating
Oh, okay.
the activities of obstructing spirits and the obstructions that evil spirits and create. That's a second. And
ne de ba chi shewa
and obstacles that occur, such as car crashes and earthquakes and fears of water and fire and so forth. There's
chi ba chi to so chi ba chi lo ja de ya yo ba ni na long la ro
It's a short.
paru dul shin de do to zin tang
Sure.
Pacification, eliminate those.
Everybody get that? Pacification of untimely death.
chu ji lo shu chu den de yo de
So the pacification here refers to pacification of the sickness that of self and others, obstacles such as obstacles which can come in, such as harmful spirits and so forth. So here, these are benefits that are being spoken of. The pacification pacifies sickness of self and others, obstacles that can take place, harmful spirits, outer obstacles such as hurricanes and earthquakes and so forth. So all of these types of obstacles can be pacified by this.
ne de ba chi shewa ta ni ba de jebile
Okay.
kan ni ba de jebile shile jebile de garasana dag chedon so na ji ban jus ane su ran da yin ge chya ri mo zo ya chdu ji ne ane ngobo lo du da bo lo du ma du shwa yo mares ngobo lo du ane lo du ma du shwa yo mares ane do jin sara be ane chsin bi dang ba la de ne ane lo goja marbe goja re du ja ba du shwa marbe what the hage what the to was marbe naga jona tambo lo so ma de yo mares ane na le lo du ro tene ko na le dal be ne do jin sara be peji amita yu injir amita yu go ne ane ko tsin ne lo du ja ba de yo marbe amita yu injir ta yo amita yu Saba me gune anu kong tsin lo dunja ba jo marbe what the hag jebile to so.
Okay. So the next is the power of increase. The power of increase refers to the increase of long life. And one translator's note, not translator's note, but I forgot something. Previously, the pacification of untimely death is also one thing that I missed, and we wanted to make sure that it goes onto the tape. So pacification of untimely death, as well as the others I forgot. So the next is action of increase. And this refers to an increase of lifespan. So there's the story of Nagarjuna, who it was prophesied that he would only live to be 7 years old. So he was taken to Nalanda Monastery, where Sarahapa performed various rituals in connection with the Buddha Amitayas. And by doing these rituals, Nagarjuna did not die at 7 years old. He was able to live 900 years, 700 or 900 years long. So we can see here the action of increase, and this is an example of that. So in dependence upon the tantric teaching, if one was going to have a short life, then he or she would be able to have a long life. So this is the action of increase, that one can, the increase being the increase in lifespan that one can achieve in dependence upon the tantric teachings.
Then sona jebile sona sana anas goa marbe goa teaching the theme goa to ngalo then ya ha tola tene and be mamuzu to go mamuzu to mambo mo
teaching the theme in sunam
yede chunchun jeba in mamuzu.
Okay, so so the increase in merit also. So the next is the increase in merit. So the merit that one can achieve in the lesser vehicle and in the great vehicle, perfection vehicle, is much smaller compared to the increase in the actual amount of merit that is achieved by practicing the tantric vehicle. So increase here refers to the increase in merit that is achieved.
Shile, jibile, that's one about ongiles, one. Oma onchibres, but the jeb gaza, not America Pazin Gaza, Bushilla Marbe, Bush on Chibis, Co America on Juro. Then Dabo, on the and on Chibuyage, Dobayina, and Hala Dene, and the on Chibus Kazure. Jen Sijan go on to Duyage, what in Hala Dene, what in the Ledroy waters.
So the next is the action of power. Semchen Tanche.
Sentient Tanche, and the Susu on to Duyag and Dobayina, and then Hala Dene, what the nigga, and one touch of Zutu.
So if one wishes to have power over sentient beings, control, right? Okay. Yeah, so if one wishes to have power or control over all sentient beings, then the practice of Tantra will facilitate that. So here the power of action refers to this. So for instance, the American president, George Bush, has the power over the American Sinzi, the Ari, has the greatest power. In the American president, George Bush, has the greatest amount of power in the United States.
And Zamaling Sinji Tangil on Juag and Dobayina, Haga to the power church.
So if one wishes to have power over all sentient beings in the world, then its practice of Tantra will help to facilitate that process, or will allow that to happen, or control over all beings in the world. The Zambaling. This is the action of power. Vice versa.
Tabile, Jesus, then Jivers, Shile, Jibile, Ongile, Tabiles, Hagatun, Tabajaguag, the Sulhevaina, and the Tabile Kazure, Tabile Javer, Tojone, Bana, Malade, Tojon, Momu Zero, the Haladene, the Taleris, Tale. 아니 라로 자와게 아니 가서 집부터 뭐 좀 하고 잡이래.
Ralotsawa,
라로 자와게 되네 콩가 라로 자와게 되는 가지고 그래. 이게 주대. 야만다가 산다 히비 나보 아니 인디아 아주노. 별 그용화레스. 그용도 별 나바속에 네 주의 돈 가서 그래. 시럽이 주여졌을 때 야분 말이라.
Susambre.
벽은 마바다 세다마도데 어떤 해말 안에 벽은 나바도 이제로다.
Shulupichu killing.
지지는 걸로 자고 어떤 것도 시럽이 살았어. 남비추 말해서 그 카타오로다. 때는 그 사지어서 근데 샤주선 주주는 주지는 좀 그랬었다.
Judun 17.
근데 샤주선 뭐 동자버서 나고 돌래. 자빌에서 어디서
Shanchu Semba Judun.
주주는 뭐래서 야요어스.
Okay, so the next is the power, the action of wrath. So here, the wrath refers to, for instance, one's ability to engage in magics and so forth. So the Milarepa used black magic to destroy entire village. And he was able to get that kind of power through this particular action of wrath. And then there's a story of Ralotsawa, who brought the teachings of Yamantaka to Tibet. And I'm not sure if it was from India or Nepal, but the teachings were brought there, and various teachers, and I believe it was Marpa or one of the other teachers, stated that this Yamantaka teaching was not a Buddhist teaching. It was an animal. Yamantaka has the head with the horns, and he stated that this is not a Buddhist deity. This is a non-Buddhist teaching. So the Ralotsawa, because of realization, actually killed through magical powers 17 bodhisattvas in order to propagate this Yamantaka tradition. Shanchu
Semba Mabujiga, Yamantaka Tantra Abu Mari, the Shirib Churis, Dojaris, Yamantaka Judy Dojaris, and the Churun Lama Dojaris, Lama Lavayo Maris, Barchad Moris, Churungi don't have Dojaris, or Tendilana, then the Conte Doris. Jetan Sujaba, the Majiba Lamba, the Mazan Shaba, the Timmy Zawa Nina Cabars, Sanji Kasha was, Chumaris. Pashi TV goes. 아니 가자 고바 치고 요가 있나? 안나 소주바 마진 발레마 마사오 셔바스 샹주 삼바 치고들 나와요. 그래서 만난 동통 맘먹으세요 말베. 군사 주선 바로. 어때? 아니 가자 고바 치고 도나? 안나 바신 디벌 나와요. 그래서 가자 고바. 안나 신전을 뱀바. 사지기 뱀발 뱀도 치고 도나? 안나 샹주 삼바 수요고는 수요 그래서 마사바 쉬어야 돼. 샹주 삼바 치고들 나와 그래서. 네바요 말이스. 네바.
So in the lesser vehicle, one has to abandon all of the non-virtues, has to abandon killing and stealing and sexual misconduct. Yeah. Has to abandon the killing, the stealing, and sexual misconduct. But in the perfection vehicle, we can see if a bodhisattva, for instance, is highly realized, then he or she can engage in some of these activities if the power can be transformed. Then the Parshin Tepi Shanchu Semba Mezampa Gari.
Mazama Sheba the Maseba Nawa Nawa. But now Manan don't know Jess, Sanjiki, Gujugi, the and the Tibetan Buddhism, Hamal Jason, Noble and Geshe Lharampa, Sombangaja Yoris. And then Manan don't know Jessica, the Manabajin, Donka, Sanlo Dele, Mangaja the Sene, Jalakan Kuji, somewhere. And the Tibetan Buddhism, Sanjiki, Guju, and the calling Hij and the Kung Mangaja Seva in a good take a leg, when you are joining when you go jigger, the leg and Hij on Kose and Outsiders on or Conton or what they. Oh, Dibayomar, 2 months, 2 nowadays.
So here, there's another story of Buddha's previous life as a bodhisattva. He was a riverboat captain, and through his clairvoyance and knowledge, he realized that there was a man on board who was going to kill 500 of the ship's inhabitants and steal all of their items and so forth. So the Buddha, realizing this, recognized that the man would go to hell for sure for killing all of these people and create an enormous amount of negative karma. So the Buddha thought it would be better for him to kill him so that this downfall, these infractions wouldn't take place. So the Buddha killed this being who was going to kill all of the people and did not accumulate any non-virtue or misdeed. He actually received a large amount of accumulation, or a large accumulation of merit in this instance.
So
here there is no infraction in this particular case.
Okay.
Oh, I remember this.
Mabagi Kalona was Mambu Tuzal Ralu as a Tatabali Mandus Lauris. Then Yamajil Mambu Tuduaris, and said about the teaching with us, and I could soon as Sudan Jinjava, Ralu Tabashu Duaris, and then Kose Mabaga Boyinda, and Mamma Yabe Ralu Hotel Javaris, Ralu de Shuna, Tabatu de Javaris, Katidus. Then Ralu Gomba sound was then Ralu Tamate was smoking. This Payapuja, then said Tamando Travers.
Marpa Gipu says so.
Maba put Tamate and Jensi.
Marpa Gipu, Tamaton so.
Ralu Tamate, Ralu Tamate and the Payapuja, then they couldn't was put it. Then they should look on Robert and Tagu and say what is.
Then Marpa Gipu, she is one.
Maba put the Nico Payapuja, Jensi Tava in Jeroa, smoking. Then the Shulman, the Maba put Tash and the Shulu Shati in Tagu and Gujan.
Then Shati less on the Marpa Gipu.
Maba push upon Doro,
Hard cares on.
Tash and Doro, Tash and Dodi, then Shati and the Dinu, Tanrun, then for you good dance.
Marpa Gipu. Then she is one.
She's not.
Okay, so there's a story of Marpa telling his son of Ralo Tsawa's actions and saying, we need to do something of this. And so there was a large congregation of people who were together. And I'm sure I'll miss details of this story, but the gist will be understood. So Ralo Tsawa was sitting on one side, and Marpa's son was sitting on the other side. And Ralo Tsawa began to look like he was smoking something. He was smoking on something. And then at that point, he was actually doing a fire puja. So while he was making this fire puja, he recognized that there was something going on with Marpa's son. So he made this fire puja. And then, this is the part I'm not clear about. Something, the shati.
That's what general.
Tamche labsa, yene the tama.
That the Gabal Lord.
Shati lepsa.
Lodu then say Tamadu Tashan.
The horse.
Horse, you call Langal Dogoro.
Su.
Say,
Marpa Garishene, Gangisen Kashig.
Katushe Marata, the harm with the Bible, the harm could know that.
No.
Or the Nako Tashan Langal Chimuro.
Then
Langal Shading Boros and Tandun.
Then the Shati lepson, then da.
Shatin to Boros, the Tanduro, Sagado, house Sagado. They could put you.
Okay. So then Marpa's son became possessed when he was doing this fire puja and mounted his horse, and the horse rode off. And then a bird came, like an eagle, and it was somewhere near where the horse was and flapped its wings and scared the horse. And the horse then bucked Marpa's son off. Marpa's son then hit his head on the ground and died.
And the Maba brought the Shimashi Jil, then Lanson Mabagi, Malariba Ketambaris, Malariba Chu, Lanson Shune, Rojikirus, and they bought the Nashi the Port on Joseph Marbe. and the Lansa Malariba joined the Paging Rojira was Paging. Paging the Kayon, and the Mabak Seg Tokanduzia, and the Maba Nashi the Paging Doris, Paging Doris, Jagalchi, Jagal.
Then in Marbagi po Pidgin Jason.
Paging
Nala.
Paging Rona, and Jagago to tell Chin Cemetery. When position a rotation, roll you in the Yalong.
Okay. So then Marpa called Milarepa and said, Milarepa, my son's dead. Please do something. So Milarepa came and he brought a pigeon. And Milarepa did a poa practice. And while he was doing that practice, he did an exchange of consciousness practice. So he did an exchange of consciousness from the Marpa's dead son into the pigeon. Then the pigeon took, the consciousness then went into the pigeon, the bird, and flew to India to a cemetery. And the bird arrived at a cemetery, and there was a corpse of a small child. And then the consciousness of the Marpa's son, which was in the pigeon, was transferred to the corpse of the small child. And then the small child got up. The mother then said, I don't think that that's my son, but it'll do. He'll do. Because they're thinking maybe because the work or whatever that he's doing seems to be different. So this is possible through the mantra. Tantra, the power. So we see the power, the great powers of the tantric vehicle that are exclusive and not found in the perfection vehicle. And we find these four actions of pacification, increase, power, and wrath. The Parshin Tepa Dangai Tepa Midrawa Gangen Sena Jubo So here the tantric vehicle differs in these ways than the perfection vehicle, and by relying upon the action of pacification, increase, power, and wrath, one can quickly arrive at the state of Buddhahood.
Then that's in Somba Pomba Zandu La Suba, to change Jesu Doji chance, Pomba Zandu La Subas, and do it. Pomba Zandu English. Pomba Zandu La Suba, to change Jesu Doji chance. Pomba Padre, Pomba Zandu La Suba.
It's actually in English on 61, the second line. Great attainment.
Yeah, it doesn't match up, does it?
Pomba Zandu La Suba, to change Jesu Doji chance.
The NGK, the Shuloka Ni, the Nyamdu, the Buyik Dang NG Chipa Yomar, Shuloka Nigu, Gangen said the Druchu Dan Druchi, the Buke Lama, then NGK Chipa.
Pomba Zandu La Suba, do it. Pomba Zandu La Suba.
Druchi, 61.
Alendula, Pomba dos in the Karazana, and the Nazude, young bones under town, Pomba Tenezuado, Pomba Tenezu, and the Hagatun to Drune, and the Rekon Jabaina, and the Lumba Yabuya, and the local digital Pentu Pomba Tenezu, and the Hagadruina, Hagadru Pre, Pomba Zambu Druba. Then young Pomba Kashi drew in the Sul Kambal Jabaina, Richi Chaya. What then to give Pomba Mudra yours, Pomba Zandu La Subas.
And the Pomba, then the Kandun Chena, then Shila, then I think
Pomba Padro, Pat Marbe. Then Alula, Medicine, Many, then Rotan, what then to give Matar Mambulu. And then Hag drew your
lesser.
He don't drew ne.
Lesser.
And then Pomba Latene on Lemo yours.
Lesser. So here, I'm going to read 60 to 61 because in 60 in the Tibetan, the 61, the second line of 61 is there. So I'm going to read both of these. If you wish to create with ease the collections for enlightenment through activities of pacification, increase, and so forth, gained by the power of mantra, and also through the force of the 8 and other great attainments like the good pot, if you want to practice secret mantra as explained in the action and performance tantras. So here the good pot refers to a pot that one could put medicine in and put various mantras and stuff it and so forth with things, and then do mantric blessing practices to the pot. And then this pot would be able to allow one to achieve various attainments, would allow one to, if put in the house, gain wealth, would allow one to achieve various good attainments. So here, this is what the meaning of the good pot is.
당가서 아마라가게 나올 때는 냐마기 추주 가주기 추주 사자기 추주도 그 bom바도는 저도 가서 냐바 대근도 어떻게 됐지 이미 그 자리스
Ningma kaju sacha.
냐마 가주 사자 추주를 bom바도는 주네 안에 무슨 냐바 대근도 냐바 대근도 어떻게 준다 그래서
So in the Nyingma Sakya and Kaju tradition, they have a pot.
자 글로요 이제
And in the Galupa tradition, a pot. The pot is symbolic of this. And there was something.
They will
Pass it around?
Make these pots and do the practices and then make gifts of them.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Right. So they will actually make these pots, and then people will make gifts of them in Tibet. It's a practice.
bomba 상주라서 어떻게 인사래 다 조천 제수 도지장 조천 제수 도지장 조천 제세다 가냐래 제기나 안 들라데네 안 가서 그래 조천 제세야데 피지 소 아이상데 하라데네 모두 모부투야도 모두 네 간주 모두 롤라고 모두 메메 모두 간주스는 하라데네 안에 뒤진 가서 조부도 도마르거다 갈래갈래 먼저 도마르와 하라데네 안 간주 모두 도와요스 안에
Kanju.
간반 조부세 빼야지 됐어
Speed running.
라니 안 가서 라니 된반 로이나 시랑고로 주제질 시랑도 도마르와 안 하게 되는 브레인 드로네 니마질 사자망을 줘도 그랬을 때 조부도 그랬어 간주 모두
So here, another. I'm trying to find the collections for
조천 제수 도지장
Drew Chen. Where is it in the great?
하가 저토스근도 저토 마세데 조천 제수
And also through the force of the 8. Let me see. Drew Chen J So.
당가 제지야도 하냐래 제기나 들라데네 간주기 모두 롤라기 모두 사우기 모두 데네 메메 모두 모두 롤레 모두 만나를 버산다 어떤 주는 가서 사도
I think
만나를
it's the
버다
8 attainments. I don't think it's translated, is it?
Great.
I think it's through the force of the great the 8
it's-
attainments,
Yeah, I
right?
think great attainments in the second line and force of the 8 in the first
Yeah,
line.
great.
Together they might refer to, anyway, in the last line of the Tibetan is group
Okay.
Chenrezig, which means 8 great attainments.
Right. Yeah, so the NGK is Selboyomare.
어떤
The
디가
Natsu, the Sarpas.
롤로지
So here, the 8 great the 8 here refers to the 8 great attainments, and in the Tibetan you see that. It's in one line of the Tibetan. So the attainments here refer to such attainments as swift foot. So if one was to walk somewhere, it would take quite a while. But one could, if they had this realization through the tantric practices, one could, one of these 8 attainments is called swift foot, and one could very quickly walk all over many different places without any problem, and it would take no time at all if one had achieved this realization.
데네 사우기 모두스 하라데네 사우 도단도를 도마르 라이트 시뮬라르 사우도 그랬을
So the next one is the ability to go underground and to penetrate the unpenetratable. One is able to, just like light, go through ground, similar to light, go through the ground and is able to move about without obstruction, without hindrance. There's a proper name for that. It's a tantric special name. I'm sure you can find it, and I'll look for it. One is able to swim like a fish, to go in the water similar to a fish.
Then Bema Sambo, Sail, Zola Khan, Jimmy Cos, what the Trota Dene, and the Tambo Nolu, Bema Sambo, the Yana in doors. Then Nakal doors, Nakal. Saiki, Sola Khan, tea to Golo, Bema Sambo, Nakal doors, and then the tea jowers.
Tea.
Tea, combat tea, Sogoma, and then the Zuru, that combat and the Zuguna. Nakal doesn't do, then the Mushasumara, then Nabutu Yasatl, and the combat. Bema Sambo Nakalchi, and take it in a Nabujuma, this Hallo Legro. What the teacher was there, Marbe? Nakalchi, and Nakal did Sunday Jumarbedi. And took on the Saka 10, so like on the Injuro. So
Padmasambhava, I'm so literate. The Padmasambhava had the ability to swim underwater like a fish, and had the ability to go into the sky and dance in the sky. And then, here's the part that I'm not clear on, when he came back down from the sky, at the actual monastery, the temple, here's the part that I'm not clear on. There's some sort of marking that's left over from this occurrence.
Measurement?
The
How's the
person who made the house.
How's the Maggie man do zero? What the Nabuji? Yeah, Nakal then the Nabujum wrote it. Yeah, then the Paji.
Okay.
How's this?
So it was these measurements. Say is measurements. So he was able to make the
line, right? So
dictate, measure out the lines from.
Able to draw a house in thin air just by drawing it out with his hands. Tell us in the space,
save on
space.
rent. Okay.
What the Saung or the Nakal Poya, what the Kanyang, then you are yours.
A tantric practitioner has the ability to go through the water and breathe, and to go through the ground without being obstructed, and fly in the sky, and so forth. These are things a tantric practitioner city can do. There are many benefits. There are many abilities. In dependence upon these things that are different from the perfection vehicle, one can quickly achieve the state of Buddhahood.
아니 레사버진에 상지살로 도그래서 한 땡기나 한양래 지기나 와 든득이 너버 여바이나 너버 여바상 용거 말레스 하게 되저기 편여도 용하라 아니 온슈레스 온슈발로 온나게 라마지고 그래서 라마게 유엔 아니 하게 상하게 라미게 유엔 간다간다고 그래서 어디서 해도 그래서 말이야.
So if one just has the desire to practice this tantra and so forth, that is not enough. One needs to achieve receive an initiation, and one needs to receive the initiation from a qualified Lama. So there must be a tantric preceptor present in order for an initiation to be bestowed. So these things are necessary. So I need to find where we are. Dewa yi na ni.
Dewa yi ne shang chu tu yong su du ban de ba dang xiao xiu su ju song be ge de sang a xue de nas. Da se ge zhu qian xie jie wong song ge le xie jie wong da ge le dang zhu qian jie la su ba de da la de ne an ne sang jie gu mo le la bon du tu ge res. shaju de shaju nenju lana me ju la so de dale antene saje salun jobun ro to gres den ro ya gun yoba ina yoba saje de ma das de yongala an ha go gre ke lama go gre wo to so go marbe.
So in dependence upon Tantra, one can quickly achieve the state of Buddhahood. But it's necessary for just this desire, this wish to achieve Buddhahood quickly in dependence upon Tantra is not enough. One needs to achieve initiation, receive an initiation, and also receive that initiation from a tantric preceptor. And just that's Geshe Rinpoche. Gangyal Sana the Inji, the
First 2 lines of 60.
Dewa Yi Ni Shanchup Sok. If you wish,
The was lel ha.
Sok Dewa. If you wish to create with
Shanchu
ease.
sun liberation marbe saje.
Dewa Yini
Shanchu Tsu.
Shanchu Sok. If you wish to create with ease the collections of enlightenment. Okay, so here that's the line Rinpoche Wa Yi Dewa.
Dewa yin shanchu tsu. Dewa sana lel ha bro.
Create with ease, so Dewa Yini is create
saje
with
go
ease.
bon to bala mate na yo so ni go ro. Shanchu tsu de mate yo so ni je. De lel ha bo je ne ba ji ti ba da man da wa. Debo dewa yi ane mate na yo so me so go to ne saje sale ro ya gun dewa yo ba ina. Dene ka dewa yo ba ina dene on to go so go on.
Lessa.
Lessa.
So here, if you wish to create with ease the collections for enlightenment, it's not only necessary to have the wish, but it's also necessary to have received an initiation and to have a tantric precept or a lama. Rinpoche, chutsu ju ni dang karma jipju jinga lesa.
O dan de zu no shawa shosu ju song bi ke de sang a shue de nas. Ane shaju shue nenju la na me ju de je song yo res. De nyang son la ba la nyang son la ge na pha shi ti ba da man da wa ane sa je go ju bu to gres. Ke de den de ge tuwa de ba yo ba yinas. Ke de sang a shue de nas. De ba yo ba yina. 안 되고 여바선 되게 말이다. 대설로는 온 거르셔. 녀고는 제 소진다. 가둘라서 타지 라마도 바냐 봐서 온 라마도 냐 봐시고. 신의 대수하고 고르서 그것도 좀 말해.
So it says if you want to practice secret mantra as explained in the action and performance tantras, then to receive the preceptor initiation, you must please an excellent spiritual teacher through service, valuable gifts, and the like, as well as through obedience. So here, this refers to guru devotion or dependence upon a spiritual teacher. So this is number 62. It speaks of this, and so if you want to practice the mantra as explained in these tantras, then it's necessary to have a teacher to give an initiation and so forth. So here we see this in the text up to number 62.
다 지나는 사제게 되는 노안이 시비 라마, 하니 시비 라마. 되네 가르쳐 그래. 노데네 라마 송요로 단데 하게 가두게 라마 송도 그래.
So there are 3 kinds of teachers. There is the Vinaya teacher, the Sutra teacher, and the Tantric teacher. So here, this refers to the 3rd kind of teacher, the Tantric teacher, that is necessary to have in order to achieve these results.
딱 하게 오고게 라마트 간데지고 그래서 고송 레던 루친 저된 당 요당 주민 하다 주시신 대니 조종 더나 체계비 도진zem비 졸라서 원데스 워데 도진zem비 라마도 워데지고 그래서 고송 레던 라마 주바로 라마 주바 고송 레던 루친 저된 다 체모도 다 드네
So those who wish to have an initiation.
다 도지 TV 라미 체니 간데르스나 도 안에
qualified Vajra master.
다 드는만 제바 가둘라잖아요 아주 말해 도지 TV 라미 요데 안에 라망가 주바 너래도 라망가 주바
Oh, okay.
라망가 주는 텔렌도 텐신 뒤라 로드된 제된 장라 요즘에 하다 주지 좋아시 히즈 대신 대주케 대니 주의 용수시 진군지 레라케 하시바이 좋아시 라도 당시 엄부두 셰송바다르 다드네 상가가 라마데 연대 담도 가르스나 고송 레당스 고송 가서 바리 시비지 마이드 말베 르나 예송게 르나 예송 추티 아부송 가지고 그랬어 고송 레당 르나 예송 추티 송 가지고 그랬어 고송 레당 르지 추티 나가 추티 예지 추티 송데 야부송 가지고 그랬어 담비질라서 말베.
So here, when we're speaking of a tantric preceptor, and it talks about, there's a quote in the 50 verses on guru devotion by Arya Deva, the Lama Ngachupa, right? Lama Ngachupa. The Arya Ashvagosha. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. It's not Arya Deva. Ashvagosha. Ashvagosha. The Lama Ngachupa Ashvagosha. Senge's what's his Ashvagosha. Ashvagosha wrote the 50 verses on guru devotion, and in this it speaks of the qualities of the tantric preceptor. And first, it speaks of the gosum. It speaks of the body, speech, and mind. The three doors should have the purity of ethics. So the body, speech, and mind, or the three doors, should have purity of ethics.
고송의 주진 상보 좀바 단진 디가 말이스 대tul 가르고서는 싫어 치고 그랬어. 싫어 치워 주고 그랬어.
So not just the pure the ethical restraint of body, speech and mind, but also great wisdom.
싫어 치면 매바 있는 하게 내주도 그 시도고 말이스. 싫어 치고 그랬어.
If there is not great wisdom, then the nature of tantra could not be ascertained. So it's necessary to have great intelligence or wisdom.
싫어 치워 되네 저비냐래다 대봐주고 그래서 저봐 말বে 배신 저비냐래다 대봐 뇌질라 점마냐고 저봐 세녀바 제송은 판녀바 맞이 저봐 공투게 그래서 저비냐래 뇌질라 점마냐고 저봐 마제다고 철도 잘라서나 안 가서 저봐 공투게 그래서 뇌질라 점마냐고 저봐.
So it should be a practitioner of patience. And the meaning of this is if one comes at him or her with harsh words or some sort of antagonism, he or she does not react. He or she practices patience. So here is another characteristic that's important, a practitioner of patience. I forgot one, didn't I? The patience of willing to endure suffering.
다 동에 달랭 줘봤어. 안에 하다 티진 라냐서 레벨 깔레 뭐 용그레스 말베 사브니 어디 걸로 줘도봐 동에 달랭 줘보고 그래서 나서 바시세디 바시세가서 차가 된다 줘봐
The patience that is willing to endure hardship. So the ngama dangde chepagare.
가데
First is the patience of not returning harm. The second is the patience of...
네 줘봐 송여로 내질라 점마냐고 줘봐 동에 달랭 줘봐 줄랑에 센지 줘봐 송여로 줘봐.
Okay, so we only did the second one. So the first is the patience of in dealing with aversion and not returning harm with harm, or not combating harm with harm. The second is the patience willing to endure hardship. And we can see an example of this in the ordinary world is boxing. A boxer is willing to endure a large amount of hardship in order to achieve his or her goal. So here, the patience of willing to endure hardship refers to the amount of patience. One will need a large amount of patience to be able to endure the hardships and the suffering that will come on the journey to enlightenment. And the third one is the patience of the Dharma. And the Sumba
다 추도 가서 그래 추 아니 대제다 대면그 추도 것이라게 차보여로 그래서 맞지 쉐발라 안 가서 그래 다가 자마자 마시바도 칼리조도 그거 이제 내세지 줘 봤어
So then the patience relative to Dharma here refers to the lesser vehicle and the great vehicle teachings are quite difficult. They're hard to ascertain. So this patience is the patient that's willing to abstract their essence or extract the meaning until one dies, until the time of death. So having the patience with the difficulty of these teachings.
Then Saint Ambu Saint Ambu. And hang Lama de Saint Ambu Gures, Saint Ambu. And Jazima shaking, Tambu Gures, Saint Ambu.
Stable mind. So the tantric Lama must have a stable mind that does not
Straightforward. Jumble, like honest, straightforward.
Jazima shape Kuma Tambu, the Kujazi shake maris, Matambu yours, Demba shakers, Tambus Tambu.
Demba,
Tambus na Demba Marve, Demba. Jazi na Kutambo Maro, Chuchu Shegorota, Kutata Tambuji.
Straightforward and not wavering in many directions.
Deceptive, not lying, not.
What is a word? I can't think of. It's called something. It must be
Integrity.
Yeah, it must have integrity, be straightforward and honest in dealings, stable in the sense of one. So lying would be an example of one who isn't this. Someone who lies is an example of one who doesn't have this. So lying would be an example of the absence of this straightforward, stable mind.
Then you members, you just now, you think men are you do men, you're not men to do what the magic you members.
Yuju Mepa is not it's like the good are faults and faults are good.
Yosana, social men you do jail marbe. Now you think you marbe you. And the Kashilian you think you and now you think men do jail. You just
claiming to possess qualities that one doesn't have. So he or she does not claim to possess qualities that he or she doesn't have. So for instance, if one does not have excellent qualities of some sort, but claiming that he or she has excellent qualities. So this is the next thing that a tantric Lama should not have.
Then Hata Junishibi Menji Gendo Nubas, Hata Junishibi Pela Dene, and Jim don't know Gaya Lasuba, what the Token Googles, Gendo Nubas. Gendo Nubas, Hata Junishibi, Penji, Penton Zua, Penton Zu, and the Manasaya, Nasuji, Babasu. Sanda Chimo do the Amadu, what the Nugge, Hajane, and the Duaina, and don't know about Canada, what the is so good.
Must have knowledge of the secret substances or the substances, that is medicinal substances, the powders, the medicinal powders, the ability to, if one, for instance, has a spirit that is harming them, is able to make a medicinal concoction of some sort that will be able to eradicate this harmful spirit. So there's probably a more literal term, but I don't know that. So the armies, people who are in the army sometimes carry this
amulet.
Is it amulet? Amulet, so that they cannot be harmed by weapons or by weapons. But we did see there are a few who were able to not be penetrated by the bullets, who are wearing these amulets. So we tie this with some kind of string and then bless it with a tantric blessing of some sort, and then put it on, and it stops the gun, stops the bullet. The bullet wasn't said, Rinpoche stops the gun, but the meaning is stops. Some it stop, some it doesn't. Where we're from, the Chinese army arrived. Kali Gangisene Chutsuni Lemba Dixon, Kali La.
Then Jad the Mamu Ragalma de Dioris.
So the Chinese army was up on top of a mountain.
Peggy Shinkan Labu children Zamazados.
And there were some children playing in the field below.
Then the children Mandashu do children Chiliandus did Kubat. Chilmadu Yomaris. And children's Labandus Jin Burners, of course, Burners there.
Lapa.
Labadin, Labanjun. Puguchun. Then the Jun Burnroda.
The Pugu Nire, Cheek
Chilio,
Cheek Sandu Yomari.
And the Konini Labandus and Jun Rores.
Konso Nyamdu.
Nyamdu Rores.
Okay.
And the Sondu make the Madakeshas.
Ale, Ninji.
Romadus. Could the Labanju do Rodejiors?
I see.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a story. There were two children playing in the field, and there were the Chinese army on the top, and they were hand in hand leaving, and they were holding hands, and one of them had the amulet, and one of them did not have the amulet. But because the child was holding the hand of the boy with the amulet, the bullet was not able to penetrate the child, even though he didn't have it, because he was holding the hand of the boy who had the amulet.
And Geshe Lharampa gave up on the Burking not to Dowers. No,
So Geshe Lobsang was shot with 5 machine gun bullets, and I'm going to extend on the story. He was shot with the bullets and they didn't go through him, but the story is that he was shot when they were leaving Tibet, Geshe Lobsang and by a machine gun, and everyone thought he had been hit. He took his robe and shook it, and all of the bullets fell out.
What the say is what the negative to Tashi is.
So here, this is explaining these qualities.
Then the Sejela he's or Sanju Bin, then his love.
It's necessary for them to have love and compassion for sentient beings.
Da she Rene Kun la Keba, Chetan Rene Kun Litene, Yegatea, Tachatan, what the Keba Gores.
Rene art.
That was is cool Jean de Azure or to Keba Gores.
Should the writing one
language.
So one it should be skilled in the writing and languages. I think he didn't say
Soariba, Nandoriba, what does the
so possibly it is the 5 those 5 subjects. So
repeat Nagan on the 2 Nandoriba Kibajugurs, Nandu, Habar, Naribi Denison, Nandoriba Denison, 3 bucks Kiba Marbe.
It should be a scholar of the 3 baskets, a scholar of the Vinaya basket, the Sutra basket, and the Abhidharma basket.
That the new Jones, she and then Joe, Nagi and then Joe, and then you shouldn't have much good.
So there are the 10 Shi Yuntenju, Nangi Yuntenju.
Joe, you shouldn't them.
So there are the 10 outer qualities and the 10 inner qualities, making for 20 qualities in total.
So the
10 outer qualities refer and are found in the 3 lower tantric classes of the action, performance, and yoga. Nejor, Sum. So the inner, I forgot now, the inner Nangiju, the inner excellent qualities are exclusive to the highest yoga tantric tradition. So this is an exclusive topic. Then the She Yuntenju, Sum, Nangi Yuntenju, Nejo Lana Mepe Ju Kuna.
Nangi Yuntenju Duena, Nejo Lame Ongo Diguaris, She Yuntenju Duena, and then Shaju Shaju Neju Ongo.
So if one wishes to have the outer excellent qualities, then it's necessary to have the 3 lower initiations. and wish of the inner qualities, then the highest, this is exclusive to the highest yoga tantric initiation. Shi Yunten, the Shi Yunten guna.
Shi Yunten Juyuna?
Guna Yuna.
Yoba Yinas. Lama del Shi Yunten Juyuna. Shaju Ongun Digris, Shuju Ongun, Neju Ongun Digris. That thing has good measure about the Janka and that Janga Mess.
So if there, why don't you give it a shot?
If this Lama has these 10 outer qualities, then it's okay for him to give the empowerments of the 3 lower tantras. And if he has all of them, the 10 inner qualities as well, then it's okay for him to give the highest yoga tantra empowerment.
Thank you.
What the need to on Tatan Chiki, the need to on and then Chusen need the need to on Lama Shuban, the need to on Tatan Chiki. That the ne Jinkun de Kebaguris, Jinku Mandela, and Chunshuya, what the Jinku Titin de Shawala Kebas.
It's necessary for him to be a master of the mandala making, making mandalas, colored sand mandalas.
And Dujalan Ha Chiale, Hagato Namashial Kebajuguris.
The meaning of Tantra, able to explain the meaning of Tantra. The path of the tantric path is able to explain the tantric path.
That Tiba Chambershitan, Chabar Haji Tibala, Degu Chamberton Demba, Demberton Dembas, Tijin Latin Tiba Dembugure, Hal Tiba Dembugures, Lamat.
Stable faith in the great vehicle and stable faith in the tantric tradition.
That Dembatan, she Onbi Godomba Duate. Dembatan, she Onbi Godombas, that can choose one the Rabanduana, Godoma Duate, Pentanata, Demba she goes also. Hangalama the water she goes.
So the tantric Lama must also possess the Gudong.
Transition goes on, Luigi Obigo, Bresibici, Baris, Tamba Shing Sazajina, or the Najun you do Emudu, Luigi Jun would do Emudu, Naga Jun would do Emudu, each Jun would do Emudu.
One should possess the mindfulness of the body, speech, and mind. Mindfulness that is checking in all actions and so forth, the body, speech, and mind.
What the Hage, the Lama to you, then what the digital damage goes on lay down, looking Zuden town, you don't Jimmy, Hada Jushi, the need to Jatan Cheke, the Jizim is what did Marbe, what the you think got intend you are is.
So these are the excellent qualities that must be depended upon. And in the Guru Puja, there's an exact quote, and I don't. Do you know that exact quote? If we have a Guru Puja, and we have in the Guru Puja, we can get the exact quote later. So these are so many excellent qualities. It seems as though there is a non-existence. It's not possible to find a Lama who has all of these excellent qualities during these times, because there are so many, it seems like it's not possible. Lama
Sheba Naji, Taji Tangan Lama Manena, Karachi Warsana, Tutin, do you tutin, Shanchu Sembi tutin, Hang tutin Sung Lama Jilden and Digris, Tamata.
Duit Sutrim, Shanchu Sembi tutin,
Hang tutin.
Dumbasum.
Dumbasum Sung Lama Shunsun, and dead orange and Digris on the ta.
So also the 3 types of ethics, the ethics of the Vinaya, the ethics of the Bodhisattva vow, and the ethics of the Tantra. So the Vinayak ethics, the Bodhisattva ethics, and the Tantric ethics. And Vinayak is the individual liberation ethics. Gusum le dam lo jin zu den drang, yu den ju meng hang gang ju xie xing. So number 45 states, we make our request to you O foremost holders of the Vajra, you are skilled in explaining and composing, are endowed with both sets of 10 qualities, and a knowledge of Tantra and its rituals. You are honorable without pretense of guile, patient, broad-minded, with your 3 doors well subdued.
What the rules what the shun chatsang shia doba yoba in the person does nangazo momishin tagasin riman rova.
So there are so many more things that we can explain, and so many more explanations that can be given if we have time. There's quite a bit of information that can be given.
Da the new then mo sama changing lamaji marana and then domba song den hejil on juice what the song is.
So if we can't find what is it? The Marana Dene, the
Domba song den.
Dumba Somten
Sotaji
Digsong.
domba, shangsen domba, ha dong song song.
So if we cannot find a preceptor, a lama with these 10 excellent qualities, then it is sufficient if they are a holder of the 3 kinds of vows, the 3 types of ethics.
What the niche song just.
And this is what is stated.
That the ngazo on kazi yeme to that the jema deba jishin the riman rova. On gna jata. What the Geshe Lharampa.
So maybe we'll end the teaching for today, and we don't have time, unfortunately, for question and answers. So we'll just do the dedication section that was explained before.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ed, for helping. Appreciate it.